circuit in this year's Formula One circus and round 6 of the 1983 World Championship. We haven't had a Grand Prix here at Spa for 13 years. There on pole position, Alain Prost in the Renault, ready to attack this new and very exciting circuit. Alongside him, number 27, the red car on the right of the picture, Patrick Tambay, with the Ferrari, the Imola winner. Row 2 to Cesaris, very quick once again with the Alfa Romeo in practice, and alongside him Nelson Piquet of Brazil with the Brabham. Row 3, Arnoux in the other Ferrari and Patrese in the other Brabham. There is Piquet with the beautiful Gordon Murray design BMW turbo-powered Brabham. Gordon Murray at the cockpit there with him. Winkelhock in the ATS and Cheever in the second Renault on row 4. And then on row 5 we've got Keke Rosberg, once again the quickest of the non-turbocharged cars. Elio De Angelis on row 7 with the Lotus with the Renault turbo engine. Niki Lauda well up on the 8th row. I say well up because of course he's non-turbocharged. Michele Alboreto on row 9, and alongside him Thierry Boutsen. That's a new name to Grand Prix racing because he is the young Belgian who's managed to get a drive in his home Grand Prix in one of the Arrows cars. Nigel Mansell back on row 10 with John Watson, who once again had problems in practice but was a little bit quicker than Derek Warwick and the Tolman, who also had his share of difficulties in the dry Friday practice. Yesterday, Saturday, very, very wet here indeed. Nobody improved on their Friday times. Torrential rain here at Spa, as it often used to be in the old days. But fortunately, today it's dry and it's warm. There, the World Championship with Nelson Piquet on the second row for this race, currently with a 2-point lead over Alain Prost. Patrick Tambay a further couple of points down with the Ferrari, and Keke Rosberg 4th after that great Monaco win just a week ago for Williams, now with 14 points. And you see a view of the downhill plunging road there, the starting line from the helicopter there. There is the start line, and it's not where the finish line is, because the finish line is on that downhill section we were looking at a moment ago, but the Formula One cars wanted to have a flat start, so here they are, yellow flags waving at the back. I think somebody's stalled. They're away to Cesaris making a magnificent start, but as Prost comes up on the inside, I think that must be a false start. The yellow flags were waving, yes, clearly everybody going slowly. Some of the cars left at the back of the grid, and I don't think the light went to green. I think it went to red and then to orange. And indeed there are 3 cars stationary on the grid. One of them is Jacques Lafitte with the Williams, one of them I think is one of the Arrows, and one is certainly the black and gold Lotus, one of the Lotuses, left on the grid. And what must have happened there is that as the yellow flags waved from the start line marshals to indicate that some of the cars had been unable to start, the current process is that if there is a yellow flag waving, the starter, Derek Ongaro, doesn't press the green light, he presses the orange. The start is aborted, and Cesaris and Prost just went away like lightning on what must in fact have been an orange light rather than a green one. But now they're being black flagged all the way around the circuit. They now know there is a black flag which says return to the start line. And so I think we're now going to get the field forming up once more. Well, I think that must be the first time since the new starting procedure was instituted that we've actually had an aborted start of that sort. You remember that we've had, that's Mark Surer apparently in trouble. He was one of the cars that appeared to stall or couldn't get going at the start. Mark Surer with the Arrows. It's his teammate who's going to be Thierry Boutsen, the young Belgian in this race. And as we look from the helicopter, the La Source hairpin away on the right, the starting grid is on that curve at the top of the picture, which we're homing in now. The finish line is after that hairpin on the downhill stretch, and the field now once again lined up. 25 cars here only now, because the 26th Mark Surer is being strapped into the spare arrows actually at this moment in the pit lane, and he's not on the grid. So Prost on pole position, Tambay alongside. De Cesaris, who made that tremendous start from the second row, is the red and white car immediately behind the yellow Renault of Prost, which is on pole position, and behind Tambay is the Brabham, and they're away, and again De Cesaris makes a wonderful start. De Cesaris squeezes through the front two rows and storms into the lead. Prost up into second place, locking a wheel. A very, very crowded three abreast line of cars coming round that very, very tight start hairpin. Amazingly, they all seem to be through. And away down the hill, it's De Cesaris from Prost, from Tambay, and the other Ferrari is in fourth place. That's Arnoux, with the Brabham of Piquet fifth. And already they're streaming out on this picturesque and scenic circuit. Away up the hill between the pine forests. They're now still on the old part of the Spa circuit. They're about to turn right sharply off the old road. There they are, onto the new section of the circuit, and De Cesaris leads for Alfa Romeo. A wonderful start. Twice De Cesaris has had to make this start because, of course, it was him that jumped into the lead at the full start. And we're told that this is going to be 41 laps and not the original 42. The race shortened by a lap to account for everybody's petrol calculations, having topped up their cars to do a 42-lap race and then having had that full start. And we're expecting, by the way, to have pit stops for the Alphas, for the Renaults, for the Brabhams, and for the Williamses at least. Tolman are probably also going to make fuel stops. Those teams are running their cars on half-full fuel tanks, and they're going to have to come in for more fuel part-way through. So they're starting with a lighter fuel load to make the break at the start and hope to build up enough advantage to be able to have a pit stop part-way through for fresh tyres and more fuel and still hold their positions. De Cesaris then, the young Italian who has never yet won a Grand Prix, who has a reputation for driving perhaps with his heart instead of his head, very quick but often erratic, but he is pulling out a tremendous lead on this first lap as they come into the chicane, now back on the old section of the circuit, into the chicane. De Cesaris, Prost, then the two Ferraris of Tambay and Arnoux, and they complete one lap as they come over the start-finish, I should say the start line, because the finish line is the other side of this hairpin, and De Cesaris leads from Prost. From the two Ferraris and from the Brabham, away down the hill go those five turbocharged cars, six turbocharged cars, because the car in sixth place, the yellow car, is the German ATS with BMW power of Manfred Winkelhock. For the second time, away up the hill from the Eau Rouge Bridge, between the pine forests, and still De Cesaris going very, very strongly indeed, coming once more into the Les Combes Espène. The red and white Alpha, it looks so like a McLaren from a distance because of the colours, but the black rear wing is a good identification point. If it's got a black rear wing, it'll be number 22 or number 23, the Alphas of De Cesaris and Mauro Baldi, his teammate, and this is indubitably De Cesaris out in front from Alain Prost, the Frenchman, in the Turbo Renault. Then the two Ferraris, both of them driven by Frenchmen. Patrick Tambay in third place, René Arnoux in fourth place, on that wickedly long downhill left-hander, followed by a hard right, and that's Patrese. Patrese has parked. No apparent damage to the car, so I would reckon that's some sort of mechanical failure on only lap 2. Riccardo Patrese, the second of the two Turbo Brabhams. There is the first, that's Nelson Piquet, number 5, and Piquet is still in fifth place, I should say, number 5 in 5th place behind those two Ferraris, and this is lap 4 as they go over the finish line, down over the Eau Rouge Bridge, and once more up the hill again. Alfa Turbo leading, Renault Turbo in second place, Ferrari Turbos third and fourth, Brabham Turbo fifth, and ATS Turbo sixth. There's the Blanchimont curves, the new section of the circuit, and away through the third of those Les Combes section, and away down through a long second gear right-hander out of this corner. The circuit still plunging downhill to a fourth gear long left-hander. You'll see it in a minute at the end of this straight. A wickedly fast corner. This is it here, 140 miles an hour through this corner. Prost in second place, Tambay third, Arnoux fourth, Piquet fifth, and the ATS sixth. Just a glimpse of Manfred Winkelhock going well in the ATS in sixth place. Then the right-hander down to the Blanchiment section. Piquet hanging the tail out in Brabham number 5, still in fifth place. His teammate already out of the race. And the ATS of Winkelhock keeping in touch. And seventh, you just saw a glimpse of him there, as ever, driving his heart out in seventh place, is the first of the non-turbocharged cars driven by the world champion, Keke Rosberg of Finland, the Monaco winner. And Rosberg has 100 to 150 horsepower less in the Cosworth-powered Williams than the turbocharged cars, and on a circuit as fast as this, where power is so important, that is a great handicap. But as ever, he's driving very hard. He's ahead of Cheever in the second of the turbo Renaults. And that's the turbo leader to Cesaris. That's Prost in the yellow Renault in second place. Over the Eau Rouge bridge, the first apex and then the second, accelerating hard, third gear, fourth gear, and up into fifth, up this long hill. And that is the other Alpha, and that is Thierry Boutsen. So we've got Mauro Baldi in the pits, and very sadly for the Belgian crowd, Thierry Boutsen, the young Belgian having his first Grand Prix in the second Arrows, is making a very early pit stop. This is lap 6. Still Prost second, still Tambay and Arnoux in the two Ferraris third and fourth. And although Mauro Baldi in the second Alpha has already got a problem and has come into the pits, to Cesaris in Alpha number 22 is extending his lead. There are the Ferraris in third and fourth places. Still Piquet is fifth. Still in sixth place is the ATS, and still going well in seventh place is Keke Rosberg in the Williams. In eighth place we've got Eddie Cheever, and in ninth place Jacques Lafitte. You'll remember that Jacques Lafitte was one of the cars, the number 2 Williams, that was left on the grid at the first start, but he's out there going strongly now. In fact, he is the second place non-turbocharged car at this moment. This is lap 6. Into the chicane comes the leader. Off the old road, that's a public road, that's part of the old Spa circuit, and Prost is under pressure now from the two Ferraris. Prost, Tambay and Arnoux all closing up, and Arnoux challenging his own teammate Tambay there. Arnoux right up to Tambay. Blue flag, that is for the two Ferraris. They were almost side by side then, but Tambay, the blue helmet, number 27, holds his third place from number 28, the white helmet, René Arnoux. Then it's Piquet, Winkelhock in the ATS, and the white car there is the Williams of Keke Rosberg, who's doing a magnificent job to keep in touch with these leading 6 turbocharged cars. Away up the hill, we watch them from the helicopter and look at Arnoux's red Ferrari closing on Tambay's red Ferrari. In the slipstream, Arnoux makes a challenge. Arnoux comes up on the inside there. Arnoux has a little look at the inside, but Tambay closes the door. Tambay isn't having any of that from his teammate. So these two Frenchmen, teammates in the Italian Ferraris, battling away there, and meanwhile, behind them, Nelson Piquet has got his work cut out in the BMW-powered Brabham to keep ahead and keep his 5th place from the BMW-powered ATS of Manfred Winkelhock. There you see the gaps. 2.9 seconds is the lead that Cesaris has at the end of 6 laps, and 0.7 of a second when they crossed the timing line that time between those two Ferraris, having a ding-dong battle for 3rd place. René Arnoux, who was expected to be very much the number one in the Ferrari team this year, and he simply hasn't produced the results of Patrick Tambay. Patrick Tambay, who delighted the Italian crowds by, and that is Thierry Boutsen's car being wheeled away. Boutsen standing in the dark helmet and the blue overalls on the left of the picture. Thierry Boutsen out of the race. That's a shame. But Patrick Tambay, we were saying, delighted the Italian crowds by scoring a magnificent victory at Imola, wearing number 27, the number worn by their beloved Gilles Villeneuve, who was so sadly killed just a year ago in the Belgian Grand Prix, not here at Spa, of course, but at Zolder. Up the hill go the two Ferraris and the Brabham and the ATS, and there was the Williams still keeping with them, and Arnoux dropping back a little bit now from Tambay, and both of them battling to stay in touch with the second place Renault, there he is, of Alain Prost, and all the time Andrea de Cesaris, driving surely one of the best and most professional races of his career, is dominating from the front. He's out of sight in that shot there. De Cesaris pulling away all the time as a wonderful 6-car group lines up for second place. It's Prost, it's Tambay, it's Arnoux, and it's the Brabham of Piquet, then Winkelhock, and then in 7th place, the world champion Keke Rosberg in the non-turbocharged Williams. At the back of that group there is the Williams, following Winkelhock. And that's John Watson out, and Jarier! John Watson and Jarier have collided at the hairpin. Watson and Jarier, who were having their own little battle over about 16th place, I think it was, and Jarier apparently trying to outbrake John Watson up the inside into the hairpin. There is Jarier's Ligier with the rear wheel clearly damaged, the rear suspension clearly askew, but John Watson not having a good weekend at all. The McLaren starting way back on the 10th row of the grid after troubles in Friday's practice, and he couldn't improve on Saturday because of the rain. Not quite as bad as Monte Carlo a week ago, where neither of the McLarens, of Watson and Lauda, qualified, but Watson out of the race, Jarier out of the race, and there is Rosberg challenging. Rosberg, the world champion, that's why he carries number 1, challenging the much more powerful yellow ATS with the turbocharger of Manfred Winkelhock as they come down the hill over the Eau Rouge Bridge. This is lap 12. And Rosberg's going through up the hill. This is where power counts. Surely there must be a problem for Winkelhock, because Rosberg is romping away up the hill. Rosberg clearly moving away from the BMW-powered ATS of Winkelhock, which should be much more powerful, to the Les Combes curve goes the new 6th place man, and that means that Keke Rosberg is in the points, and I think that Winkelhock has a problem with the ATS. Down the hill, down towards the Rivage corner, that's the long right-hander, and then the fast plunge downhill into 5th gear, now up to 165 miles an hour, dab the brakes, 4th gear now. Rosberg flings the Williams sideways into this long, terrifyingly fast 145 mile an hour left-hander that just goes on and on and on. Briefly 5th gear again, and then into the right-hander that follows it. This is still the new part of this dramatically fast circuit before now they get back onto the old section just there, the old track coming in from the left there in that shot. And René Arnoux is under pressure. He was challenging Tambay, but Tambay's got away, and René Arnoux now under a lot of pressure from Nelson Piquet in the Brabham. There is Prost in 2nd place. There's Tambay in 3rd place, and here's the 4th place battle now. The red Ferrari is Arnoux. The dark blue and white Brabham with the dagger nose is Nelson Piquet, and Piquet closing on Arnoux as we watch Tambay into the hairpin. Arnoux into the hairpin. On the brakes goes Piquet, closing up under braking. The Ferrari through the hairpin. The Brabham through the hairpin, up through the gearbox, away down the hill, and is Piquet going to challenge as they go down towards Eau Rouge? Is he close enough? Not this time. The Ferrari pulling away a little bit over the Eau Rouge Bridge, up the hill once more. The cars pulling amazing G-forces, both with cornering and as the car takes that gradient. Up the hill, the Ferrari now pulling away a little bit from the Brabham, but watch the Brabham close up under braking. Into Les Combes. Yes, the Brabham does close up under braking. This is the battle for 4th place. Still the leader is the Alfa Romeo of Andrea de Cesaris. You're not seeing much of him, but he's driving a very, very smooth race from the front. Alain Prost playing now the waiting game in 2nd place, but not being able to delay. Oh, and Piquet has a go on the inside there. Prost can't delay because he's got Patrick Tambay's Ferrari not very far behind him in 3rd place. And this is the battle for 4th between René Arnoux' Ferrari and the Brabham of Piquet. Puffs of flame from the exhausts of these turbocharged cars as they lift off for the corners. A distinctive characteristic of the modern breed of turbochargers. There you see Piquet's car flaming at the back as he comes off the power, and unburned petrol vapour goes through the hot exhaust system. And René Arnoux having to work very, very hard under pressure now from Piquet. Piquet dogging his every wheel track. Back onto the old circuit now, and up towards the chicane. And Piquet is tucked nicely into the slipstream. Is he going to try under braking for the chicane that's about to follow after this left-hander? Has a little look at the inside, decides not this time. That's Tambay, and there is Arnoux a little bit further in front of Piquet that time. And goodness me, closing on those two now. The car at the back of that trio hits our old friend Keke Rosberg with his power disadvantage and his enormous determination and courage. Down to the La Source hairpin, bottom gear, 50 miles an hour. And up through the gearbox, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, down to where the finish line is, and surely now Piquet must have a go on the inside, but once again the door is shut by Arnoux, who takes his line as they go on up the hill, and Piquet once more has to fall back. And there's obviously nothing wrong with the power of the Ferrari, because it's on the straights that René Arnoux is able to pull out. It's on the straights that the Williams drops back at the back of this trio, but watch Rosberg, the 3rd car in this group, close up in the tight and twisty bits. René Arnoux 4th in the Ferrari. Nelson Piquet 5th in the Brabham. Keke Rosberg 6th at the back of this trio in the Williams. On down the hill, Arnoux' mirrors absolutely full of the dramatically styled nose of this very narrow-fronted, very attractive Brabham. Gordon Murray, the South African designer for the Brabham team, always manages to make a car which not only works very well, but looks very, very graceful indeed. Through the long, left-hander, Le Pouhon. 5th gear briefly, back to 4th, and once again Rosberg is watching. And as Arnoux has to drive defensively, and as he's able to keep the door firmly shut for the Brabham of Piquet, so all the time Keke Rosberg's able to close. Piquet using a bit of the curb there. Piquet normally so tidy, trying everything, going one side then the other to find a way past the Ferrari. And the rest of the field, de Cesaris the leader, Prost in 2nd place, and Tambay in 3rd, are moving away from this group. There's Tambay, a brief flash of him, and here come the trio up into the chicane once more. Bouncing across both curbs goes Arnoux, not very tidy at all, and bouncing off the curbs coming out. Arnoux is getting ragged, and look how close Rosberg is up to Piquet, on the brakes, down to bottom gear, into the La Source hairpin once more. This is lap 15 now. And the Williams is close once more, over the finish line, down to Eau Rouge, over the bridge, a little river running under that section, and on up the hill, and Arnoux has pulled out just a little bit. Still the position at the front of the race, just as it was. De Cesaris leading, Prost in 2nd place. Tambay is 3rd, Arnoux 4th, as you see him here, 5th Piquet, 6th Keke Rosberg. In 7th place, we've got Eddie Cheever, 5.6 seconds there. You see the lead that de Cesaris has over Prost. It's Prost's teammate Eddie Cheever who is 7th. It's Rosberg's teammate Jacques Lafitte who is 8th. And in a splendid 9th place now is the turbocharged Tolman of Derek Warwick. He's going strongly in 9th place. Niki Lauda is 10th in the McLaren, and still we see this wonderful battle for 4th place, with Arnoux holding on and Rosberg closing right up to these two as they've come down the hill now and rejoin the old circuit. Arnoux, Piquet, and Rosberg sliding out of that corner. Rosberg not terribly happy with the handling of his Williams this weekend. He says the car has been understeering a bit. That means that the car tends to want to go straight on in a corner, and his technique for getting the car round the corner has been to chuck it sideways and get the tail hanging out. Into the chicane once more. And that car at the back, the yellow car which is closing on this battle, is Eddie Cheever. Eddie Cheever in 7th place in the Renault. This is lap 17 now. And Eddie Cheever is catching up to this group, so that is a measure of how much Arnoux is holding the trio up. And Piquet is very close now. Piquet surely must challenge as they come down the hill. Piquet is alongside over the finish line. Piquet is through. Nelson Piquet takes 4th place after trying so hard for so long. And as the Ferrari closes up under power as they go back up the hill again, Nelson Piquet is away and Rosberg is challenging Arnoux now. Piquet is away up the hill and into Les Combes on the brakes, turn it hard right through this triple corner. Nelson Piquet up into 4th place with the BMW turbo-powered Brabham, and Arnoux has now got his mirrors absolutely full of Rosberg, and Rosberg challenges. You just saw a glimpse there. Rosberg is challenging. He didn't get through, but Rosberg is very fast down this downhill section where it's much more courage and road holding than power. It's the power that tells them. The uphill section on the other side of the circuit, and Rosberg knows that if he's going to get past the Ferrari, this is where he's going to have to do it. That's the 145 mile an hour left-hander, and the Ferrari easing away once more, but Arnoux now demoted to 5th place, Rosberg still 6th, and that car just flashing into sight at the back of the group, the yellow car, is the 7th placed Eddie Cheever in the 2nd of the Turbo Renaults. Still, Andrea de Cesaris is the leader. Still, Alain Prost is in 2nd place. Still, Patrick Tambay is 3rd. The new 4th man, Nelson Piquet, pulling away. There he is. And already, look how much he's pulled away as they go up towards the chicane from Arnoux. And Arnoux still has the pressure from Keke Rosberg. Into the chicane now. Piquet, Arnoux, Rosberg and Eddie Cheever. And once more, untidily over the curbs, bouncing across the curbs, goes the Ferrari of Arnoux. Up to the hairpin now. This is the 18th lap. They're just starting. On down the hill once more, and Cheever closing all the time. Now, this is bad news for Rosberg, because Rosberg is in 6th place. If he can stay there, that will earn him a precious championship point. But Arnoux is staying in front of him in the fast bits and holding him up in the slow bits, and all of that is allowing Eddie Cheever in 7th place to get closer. Up the hill goes Arnoux. Rosberg tucked in behind him, and Cheever's only just out of sight. You saw a very briefest glimpse of him there. Piquet, Arnoux, Rosberg, and there's Cheever at the back. And 6.5 seconds now is de Cesaris' lead over Prost, and another 6 seconds from Prost is Tambay, and Piquet a further 8 seconds down. So the front 4 cars well spaced out. Piquet drawing away gradually from what has now become a 3-car battle for 5th place, led, as before, by René Arnoux in the Ferrari. And Arnoux, I think, is not terribly happy with the handling of this car, because Tambay has pulled well away, but Arnoux is having his work cut out to hold off the attentions of Keke Rosberg and now Eddie Cheever. Back onto the old circuit, the old historic Spa circuit. It was 8.5 miles of public roads. This new track now 4.3 miles, but retaining so much of the high-speed character. Oh, and Cheever having a look at the inside there. Cheever challenging very hard now on the unfortunate Rosberg, who's been unable to get past Arnoux in the bits where he's fastest, and is getting left behind by Arnoux on the faster stretches where the Ferrari's turbocharged power can tell. And he's got turbocharged power behind him in the shape of Eddie Cheever's Renault. And that must be bad news, I think, for Rosberg. He's going to find it very difficult to keep the American at bay as they go off down the hill, past the old pits, over the finish line, down to the Oru bridge, left and then right, and on up the hill. Between the pine trees on a road that is mercifully dry today after the torrential rain we had yesterday, with the cars howling up this straight in a ball of spray, and a river of rain running down to meet them. Rosberg working away in 6th place still. How hard he's worked for this single point position, because it's 1 point that he'll get at the championship if he manages to hang on to this 6th place. Rosberg, who only scored his 2nd ever championship win at Monaco just 1 week ago, but who nevertheless, on the strength of 1 win and some very consistent drives, won the World Championship last year. And that's Elio De Angelis, who's made his routine pit stop. It's rather early, but we reckon that is indeed the first of the routine pit stops. Elio De Angelis in the Lotus, who has been running down in 11th place. So the Renault turbo-powered Lotus not showing as well as the Renault turbo-powered Renaults, anything like. But De Angelis has made his pit stop, and there is the leader. De Cesaris, the leader, has his pit stop. Now, how long is this going to take? Is this going to be slower than the Renault ones, and could this lose him his lead after everybody else has made their pit stops? We've got the stopwatch on it, and it's quite a quick one, but there's a problem with the fuel. The fuel was slow, and one of the back tyres is not finished. One of the back wheels is not finished. That was a Ferrari also coming into the pits, but that's 25 seconds, and that is about 10 seconds slower than it should be as the Alfa Romeo rejoins the race. Andrea De Cesaris, who has driven superbly for 20 laps and is now safely back in the race with fresh tyres and more fuel, having built up a considerable lead. He's now, of course, lost the lead, but the man who's inherited it, Alain Prost, you're seeing him now. You're seeing Cheever. That is Cheever coming through, but Alain Prost in the Renault is now the leader, but he still has his pit stop to make. Patrick Tambay is in 2nd place, and he has his pit stop to make. Nelson Piquet's 3rd, and he too has a pit stop to make. But and that's the ATS off. That is Finkelhock's ATS out. He's had a pit stop and has come back into the race, but very firmly off on the 145-mile-an-hour downhill corner. The long left-hander we were telling you about. Finkelhock's car off. We're going to see it, and it's the back wheel breaking up. Look at that back wheel. It's coming right off the car. Showers of sparks. Finkelhock off, the wheel off, and Finkelhock sliding backwards into the catch fences. The Armco barrier stops him, and look at the wheel in the top right-hand corner of your screen. That wheel went 30-40 feet in the air. They've retrieved the wheel. Finkelhock, with the red overalls, crash helmet in his hand, obviously completely unhurt, and just trying to work out with the marshals what on earth happened. 145 miles an hour downhill and a back wheel, outside back wheel brakes. That can't be a bit funny. And there is our leader, number 15, Alain Prost of France. Now, he has still got his pit stop to make, because he's going to need 4 fresh tyres and some more fuel. But as you saw, the pit stop of De Cesaris took 25 seconds, and that's about 10 seconds longer than it should have taken, because now, after the practice that the teams who do this regularly, Renault particularly, Brabham, of course, who really started the whole thing, and Williams, they've now got the pit stops down to about 14 seconds stationary. costs you a bit more than that because you have to come into the pits, slow down, stop, accelerate, but the actual stationary time, I think the record's 13 seconds, and certainly 15 and 16 second stops are commonplace, and De Cesaris's stop took 25. That's a 10-second penalty that he could ill afford. And so now on lap 23, let's run down the order. Prost, there he is, in the lead, in the Renault. In second place now is Nelson Piquet, because we've had a stop for Patrick Tambay. Nelson Piquet still has to stop. We've got another stop here. That is Prost. Prost in the pits. Alain Prost makes his pit stop. This is the leader, and the stopwatch starts. Can he do it without losing the lead? Nelson Piquet surely will go past to take the lead. The Renault mechanics wearing crash helmets. Oh, it's a quick one. Oh, up go the hands, and that's a superb stop for Alain Prost. Less than 14.5 seconds, 14.4 seconds to change 4 wheels and take on 30 gallons of fuel under pressure. And a very, very quick stop indeed, but it has dropped him to second place, in fact, behind Nelson Piquet, who still has to stop. We're looking at Patrick Tambay, and Tambay has made his stop in the Ferrari. But looking now down the order, we've got briefly in the lead, I say briefly, that's René Arnoux. René Arnoux off, and it looks as though he simply parked it, looking rather disconsolately at the back of the car. Probably, one would guess, an engine or a transmission failure, because he simply parked the car. Off comes the balaclava, and the little Frenchman walks disconsolately home. There is his teammate Patrick Tambay, who after his pit stop on our lap charts is in 4th place. The leader is Nelson Piquet. He still has to stop. Alain Prost, after that tremendously quick stop, has come out in 2nd place in front of Andrea De Cesaris, who is 3rd. Now that shows exactly what I was saying, that by having a pit stop 11 seconds faster than De Cesaris, Alain Prost was able to move into 2nd place. The gap between them is actually 9 seconds, and that is slightly less than the extra time that the pit stop took. So it's the Alfa Romeo pit work not being as good as the Renault pit work, which has dropped De Cesaris to 3rd place. There is the leader, but surely he has to stop soon. That is the leader, Nelson Piquet, and surely he's coming in now. Nelson Piquet into the pits for his pit stop, and there's Alain Prost going through. Alain Prost retakes the lead as into the pits comes Nelson Piquet, and we've got the stopwatch on it, and these Brabham guys really know how to do their duty in the pits. Goodness, it's quick. Some of those wheels were changed in 8 seconds. You can see the jacks held up. It's a bit slow at the end because I think the fuel was the slowest, but that was 14.5, 15 seconds or so. So a very competent stop by the Brabham mechanics, perhaps a second slower than Prost, but very little in it. Both Brabham and Renault doing absolutely what is required for their drivers, and that now means that on lap 25 of the 41 laps, we have had pit stops for most of the front runners. And looking down the order, we've got the leader, Alain Prost, safely out of the pits with the Renault Turbo. There he goes, Alain Prost, the leader, in Renault number 15. In 2nd place, it's Andrea De Cesaris, who is 8.8 seconds behind the Renault. Now that's interesting because it's not impossible that De Cesaris can close that gap in the 17 laps or so remaining. Nelson Piquet has come out of the pits into 3rd place. Patrick Tambay, who's also made his pit stop, is 4th. Eddie Cheever is now 5th, and Keke Rosberg is in 6th place ahead of his own teammate Jacques Lafitte. 8th is car number 8, that's Niki Lauda in the McLaren, and Niki Lauda is going to try to do the whole distance We watch Marc Surer bouncing over the curbs and the arrows before we see the leading Renault through the chicane. Niki Lauda is going to try and do the whole distance with the McLaren without a pit stop. So he started on slightly harder tyres and with a full tank of fuel. And we wait for the second man, Andrea De Cesaris, in the Alfa Romeo. De Cesaris, who made that wonderful start, who lost 10 seconds that he shouldn't really have lost. And that's the Brabham coming through. Where is De Cesaris? The Brabham comes through, Tambay comes through, and also so does the second of the Renaults of Chiva, and we are missing Andrea De Cesaris. Andrea De Cesaris, who should have been second. We can't see him on the screen. We can't see him from our commentary position here, but it looks as though Andrea De Cesaris has gone missing. Well, that's very, very bad luck, because he did drive very, very well indeed right from the start, and had his pit stop not been slower than it should have been, he would still, I believe, have been leading. And there he is. That is De Cesaris parked. His car parked forlornly on the left of the road up the hill from Eau Rouge. De Cesaris out of the car. He's obviously parked it, some sort of mechanical failure. We can only guess at what it was. But De Cesaris' race is clearly run, and here now is our new third man, Patrick Tambay, and he is not very far behind the second man, Nelson Piquet. Pit stops for all these chaps well out of the way, so it's now a straight fight to the flag. This is lap 27, so 14 laps left to run, and a battle still very much in progress for second place. And there is De Cesaris. You see him sitting, crash helmet on his knee, to the left of his car, the car simply parked on the run up the hill from Eau Rouge. Very, very sad indeed for number 22, and once again De Cesaris, after a very strong drive indeed, has seen his car fail underneath him. There the gap's 25 seconds, nearly 26 seconds is Prost's lead, very comfortable indeed, but barely 2 seconds, 2.3 it must be, between Piquet and Tambay. Chiva is only another 3 seconds down in the second Renault in 4th place, with in 5th and 6th places the two Williams cars of Keke Rosberg number 1 and Jacques Lafitte number 2. There in 5th and 6th places. Niki Lauda is now up to 7th. And we've got the two Tolmans going well. In fact, it's Bruno Giacomelli now in 8th place in his Tolman, because a problem for Derek Warwick. He actually has had to make his pit stop for fuel twice, because I'm told that when he brought the Tolman in for his first pit stop, they couldn't make the fuel feed work, so they sent him out again while they mended it and had to bring him back in 1 lap later. So Warwick has dropped back from his teammate Bruno Giacomelli, but both of the Tolmans going strongly, as is the Ferrari of number 27, Patrick Tambay, yet again turning in a smooth and splendid drive, as he so often does, and Tambay with the incentive of the back of the Brabham that is in second place, just ahead of him as they go up the hill. They've got a back marker in front of them to pass. Number 27 in third place, the Ferrari. Number 5 in second place, the white Brabham. And Tambay, head tucked down in the cockpit. 2.18 was the gap when they crossed the start-finish line, but I would think, just looking at the picture, that it's probably less than that already, and Tambay is certainly closing as they go down the hill through the tight rivage right-hander, and then on down to the very, very fast long left-hander that they take in 4th gear at 145 miles an hour. That's where the ATS's wheel broke and put Winkelhock into the fences. There they're going through it now. And back markers could well start to be a factor here, because as these two cars battle on their way, they've got to find their way through the traffic. And it's in fact one of the Tyrrells that's just been lapped by it's Danny Sullivan, the American, who has been lapped by Piquet but has yet to be lapped by Patrick Tambay. So Tambay split from Piquet for the moment by the Tyrrell of Danny Sullivan. Sullivan, who scored his first ever championship points, 2 points for finishing 5th in Monte Carlo 2 weeks ago, and Sullivan lets Tambay past, and back down to the chicane they come. And it's going to be interesting to see to what extent Tambay can make up that brief handicap he got from being held up by Sullivan, because I think the Ferrari is going quicker than the Brabham at this point. Tambay's got to close up on Piquet, and then he's got to find a way past him. We're getting a slow motion shot of Sullivan being lapped. So Sullivan keeping well over to the right of the road and letting Tambay pass, looking in his mirrors, as all the slower drivers always should do, but as some of them occasionally forget to do. Over the Eau Rouge Bridge and on up the hill. This is now lap 31, so 10 laps or 43 miles left to run. And on up the hill once more. We watch them from the helicopter, and Tambay clawing back, inch by inch, the gap between Piquet and himself. So in these closing stages, while Alain Prost is comfortably out in front in the Renault Turbo, are we going to see a change of second place? Sullivan at the back there. It's 1.4 seconds now, that gap, so it is very definitely coming down all the time. Down the hill they go once more. The big wing on the back of the Ferrari helping to push the car down onto the ground. But of course the ground effects no longer allowed this year, though that was the way by which parts of the chassis of the car actually came into contact with the road. They were called skirts, and they helped to suck the car down. As we watch the leader now, Prost, Alain Prost. No ground effects this year, still wings of course, but the car's no longer allowed to use that method to suck themselves down. A magnificent helicopter shot of the circuit as we see the positions with 8 laps to go. 24.2 seconds is Prost's lead. Tambay at that point 2.4 seconds behind Piquet, but it's a lot closer than that. I think Cheever still 4th, Rosberg and Lafitte still 5th and 6th, and Tambay's done it. There is the Brabham, but you saw a flash of Ferrari ahead of him, and there going down the hill is Patrick Tambay, the new second place man. Patrick Tambay is second, and suddenly he's a long way ahead of the Brabham. The Brabham of Nelson Piquet falling back in third place. And I think whatever his problem is, there is certainly something that is amiss with the Brabham, because suddenly Tambay has gone romping past. He's got, that's Alboretto's Tyrrell this time being lapped, as Tambay goes into Les Combes, the first part of the new section of the circuit, and Patrick Tambay now comfortably into second place, and already the gap is 3.1 seconds. So whatever the Brabham's problem is, it's pretty serious. Nelson Piquet has slowed dramatically, and that may well be significant for Eddie Cheever, because Eddie Cheever is now 4th, and Eddie Cheever in the second of the Renault, the teammate to the leader Alain Prost. Cheever is closing. Here's the second man, Patrick Tambay, number 27, the Ferrari. His teammate, of course, René Arnoux, out of the race. We're told that was an engine failure, incidentally. You saw the Ferrari being parked by René Arnoux, but Arnoux was never, during this race, as quick or as smooth to watch as Patrick Tambay. Always very smooth indeed, and that's Niki Lauda in the pits. The sole surviving McLaren, Ron Dennis, with the headphones on, walking to the right of the picture, and it's Niki Lauda out of the car. John Barnard, the other man with headphones just behind the cockpit there, the car's designer, but Niki Lauda out of the car, clearly his race run, and that's a shame, because he had come up into 7th place and was indeed the 3rd fastest of the non-turbocharged cars behind the 2 Williamses. Down the hill comes Prost. He is about to lap Elio De Angelis, who's still going, albeit well down the field, in the Renault turbo-powered Lotus. So that's 2 Renault engine cars, but they're a lap apart as Alain Prost goes up the hill once more, closing on Elio De Angelis in the Lotus, tucked into the slipstream, pulls out. Lotus using turbo Renault power in just car number 11 this year. Nigel Mansell in car number 12 using the ordinary Cosworth engine is in fact in some sort of problems, I gather, well down the field. So Prost safely past Elio De Angelis. On our lap charts, De Angelis down in something like 9th place. We see again the power of a Renault that's clearly very healthy passing a Renault that is perhaps not quite so healthy, as De Angelis keeps well over to the left of the road as they go into Les Combes, and Prost is safely through. In fact, I think if De Angelis had held him up, there would have been a slight political conversation perhaps between Renault and Lotus, because of course Lotus do depend on Renault for the supply of the turbo engines for De Angelis' car. So far it hasn't been a happy year at all for Lotus. Of course, they had the tragic blow of the death of their founder and very much their leader, Colin Chapman, during last winter, and Peter Waugh now running the team. 26.1 seconds is Prost's lead, and that's a long way now because we're on lap 37 of the 41, so only 4 laps left to go. Less than 20 miles ahead of Alain Prost as he comes through the chicane now for the 37th time. Over the start line past the new pits, but remember that's not the finish line because he has to go round the La Source hairpin, which he is now doing, down into bottom gear, then accelerating hard again down the hill, up through the gearbox, second, third and fourth, past the old pits, steeply downhill, over the finish line, which he does now. De Angelis still following him a lap behind, over the Eau Rouge Bridge and on up the hill once more. This is now lap 38. So he's got 3 laps left to run, past poor de Cesaris' abandoned car. And I think Prost wouldn't have had quite such an easy task in this race if Andrea de Cesaris' Alfa Romeo had held together. Into Les Combes. First apex, second apex. As we see Piquet about to lose another place. That's Eddie Cheever now. So Nelson Piquet's third place being threatened. He's lost second place to Tambay, and now Eddie Cheever, Alain Prost's teammate, the American, new to the Renault team this year, closes as they go through Eau Rouge, closes on Nelson Piquet, accelerating away up the hill. And we've had a report of what Nelson Piquet's problem well may be, because Piquet is slow there, very slow up the hill. He's very slow down the straights. He's as quick as ever he was on the other parts of the circuit, and we're told that possibly his Brabham has lost top gear. So Piquet is able to go as fast as ever in all the places where he's using second, third and fourth gears, and indeed bottom gear as he does at La Source hairpin. But on the straight here, where he would normally be in fifth gear, he must be bouncing along in fourth with the car absolutely on the rev limiter, unable to go any quicker. So that is the theory of what Piquet's problem is, and certainly the bad luck for Piquet, whatever it is good luck for Eddie Cheever, because now we've got Renaults in first and third places, and you see how the Brabham is closing back up again on Cheever, because here he'll be in fourth gear, he'll hold fourth down to this right-hander, and Piquet fighting back. Piquet fighting back on Cheever. Now, what's going to happen when they get to the straights? Is he going to be able to find top gear in the Brabham and get back in front again? Eddie Cheever, the new third man in the Renault. Nelson Piquet demoted to fourth in the Brabham. As they go back onto one of the quick sections, they're now back on the fast section of the old circuit. Briefly up into... Yes, and look how the Brabham falls back, as now he will have gone into top gear. The Brabham disappears back. Now on the brakes again, they go into the chicane. Once again a slower section, but the Brabham has lost touch with the Renault, and clearly Eddie Cheever is going to pull away. So Renault's in first and third places, a Ferrari in second place, a Brabham fourth, and Williams is fifth and sixth. The new seventh man is Bruno Giacomelli. So Bruno Giacomelli only just out of the points in the Turbo Tolman, and his own teammate also going strongly despite those 2 pit stops, Derek Warwick, who had that wonderful drive a week ago, you'll remember, in Monte Carlo, only to drop out of the race in a battle that became a real wheel-to-wheel battle with Mark Sura going into the chicane. So both Tolmans going in 7th and 8th places, Giacomelli and Derek Warwick, but the leader, no doubt at all about Alain Prost, who now is on his 39th of 41 laps. Through the twists, on down the hill. This superb new circuit, which has really, I think, today earned its reputation in Grand Prix racing. All the drivers like it. All the drivers are a little bit in awe of it. They all say it's a difficult circuit. It's a circuit that sorts the men from the boys because it has these immensely fast corners. And any Grand Prix driver will tell you that it's not so difficult to drive round a hairpin or through a chicane, as Prost is just about to do. There are 2 laps left to run. Already the photographers gathering by the start-finish line. Prost coming now into the hairpin, also an easy, slow corner, any driver will tell you, but it's the fast corners. It's the corners where you're in 4th gear or you're in 5th gear and the car is cornering absolutely on the limit. As Alboreto is lapped again, I think he's got a problem there. Michele Alboreto going really quite slowly there. Up the hill past to Cesaris' abandoned car goes Alain Prost on his penultimate lap. This is lap 40 of the 41. Remember, the race was going to be 42 laps, but just before the race started they decided to reduce it to 41 because everybody would have done their fuel consumption calculations based on 42, and because of the false start everybody did a complete lap. They actually did 2 laps because after that full start they then had another warm-up lap. So if the race continues to 41 laps, as we're told it will do, then everybody will actually have had to have done a further lap over and above their calculations. It'll be interesting to see whether that will in fact mean that we might have a rash of cars running out of petrol in the closing laps. Prost on his way. Of course, Prost shouldn't have that sort of problem because he had his pit stop for fuel during the race, and I'm sure that the clever chaps at Renault will have worked it all out. Gerard Larousse, former race and former rally driver, who is the team manager of the Renault Formula One effort, and we're now told that they are going to end this race after 40 laps. We can see from our commentary position here by the finish line, the man with the checkered flag is there, and clearly because of that worry about fuel consumption, because they did those 2 extra laps at the start, this race that was to have been 42 laps is going officially to be 40, and so Alain Prost is on his final lap down to the chicane for what is now going to be the final time. Alain Prost brings the Renault RE40 through the chicane. He's already won the French Grand Prix this year. He's going to win the Belgian Grand Prix. It's going to be the World Championship lead for him as he comes down to La Source, the tight hairpin for the final time. The turbocharged Renault is going to give him his 7th Grand Prix victory down the hill past the old pits. The man with the checkered flag is waiting. Over the finish line goes Alain Prost to win the Belgian Grand Prix, the first Belgian Grand Prix at Spa for 13 years. A great victory for Alain Prost, helped no doubt by slick pit work from the Renault team, helped also by the unreliability perhaps of the Alfa Romeo, but nevertheless a very worthy victory for this very, very competent and mature Frenchman. We haven't had a French world champion yet, but Alain Prost wants to put that right in 1983. And as Patrick Tambay takes 2nd place, one of the Tyrrells still racing hard there, we've had Patrick Tambay through in 2nd place in the Ferrari, and it's going to be Eddie Cheever who takes 3rd place. So, and that's Bruno Giacomelli off. Giacomelli has spun on the section going down the hill back onto the old circuit. Giacomelli is being pushed by the marshals. Is he going to try and struggle to the finish? It's the final lap. Surely he gets the Tolman going in clouds of oily smoke. And the Turbo Tolman is back on the circuit after that late race spin. But there we have the final results, with Cheever taking 3rd, as I say, by just 2.5 seconds from the unhappy Nelson Piquet. Keke Rosberg 5th. And once again, the fastest non-turbocharged car, his Williams teammate Jacques Lafitte, is 6th, and Derek Warwick is finishing 7th, and Bruno Giacomelli, if he makes it back to the finish line, will take 8th place. So both the Tolmans finish, both the Renaults finish in a splendid 1st and 3rd place, split only by Patrick Tambay's Ferrari, which is 2nd. And that means that in the championship position, Alain Prost, as we told you, goes into a 4-point lead over Piquet. Patrick Tambay is third, and Rosberg, with his 2 hard-won points today, keeps 4th place with 16 points. Watson and Lauda now down in 5th and 6th places, and Cheever appearing jointly in 7th place with René Arnoux and Jacques Lafitte, all of them with 8 points. So now, as the Belgians swarm across the circuit to greet the winner, we look back on a splendid first Grand Prix at the new Spa circuit, which has very much proved itself to be a great circuit here today. There is Patrick Tambay in the red overalls, very pleased with his 2nd place, and Alain Prost waving to the crowd. Alain Prost of Renault wins. Patrick Tambay on his right is 2nd, and on his left the 3rd place man, which is Eddie Cheever. The Silver Cup, the spoils of victory, a splendid first Grand Prix at the new Spa circuit, the first we hope of many. And now, without barely pausing for breath, the Formula One circus are packing up and moving on towards North America and the Detroit Grand Prix just 2 weeks away. We'll